Hey guys, it's NS, and you are watching Divide by Zero Gaming. I am here with my friend Hugh, and today we are giving you a look at mounts, specifically the changes that have been made to them in Cataclysm since the earlier days of WoW. As some of you might know, I actually only started playing WoW recently, back in October, so Cataclysm was not out yet at that point, but was having a heavy hand in influencing a lot of the content, whereas Hugh has been playing way back since vanilla days, so he's going to be able to give us a more old-fashioned look at the changes that have been made and the way the entire mount system is set up now.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's you here. Like NS said, I played back in vanilla, and we're just here to bring you kind of an overview of some of the good things about the writing now in Cataclysm and some of the bad things.
Alright, so to start this off, I think we're just going to take a look at some of the prices on the various things and compare those to the way they were back in the day. So, Hugh, I know you will probably have a lot to say about this in frustration, but just let me get through all the prices before you interrupt me, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Alright, so right now we are just chilling out at the basic riding trainers in Bloodhoof Village, and we will actually be taking a look at the flying mounts later on, but we aren't there quite yet. So right now, apprentice riding costs 3 gold and 60 silver, and journeyman riding costs 45 gold. And also bear in mind, this is something that I pay attention to because I play a class that this affects. If you are a warlock or a paladin, you can buy your warhorse or fellsteed mount from your class trainer. That only costs 1 gold, and the apprentice riding is rolled up with that. So if you play one of those classes, you actually don't even need to buy apprentice riding. And then if we walk over here and pay attention to the mount seller, the basic mounts that you get at level 20 cost 90 silver, and the epic mounts at level 40 cost 9 gold each. Comparing this to back in the day, I have a little sheet of paper in front of me that we got off threadmeters.com, a certain forum thread there. And I cannot be certain if this information is correct, but we're going to put our faith in it. It said that back in the days of vanilla, TBC, Wrath, mounts at level 40, which was, keep in mind, the amount that you get at level 20 now, cost 90 gold, and the riding skill costed 10 gold. And then the epic mounts cost 900 gold, and you got those at level 60, and the skill for that cost 100 gold. So as you can see, we have some very, very large price discrepancies going on there.
Yeah, and one other thing that went with that, I know at some point during vanilla there was a big change to that. I remember, so first the mounts were the really expensive thing, and the riding ability was very cheap. And I think they had some problems with people just like begging to a certain degree. So then I think I don't know actually why they changed it, but they changed the mounts to be the cheaper of them. So I think it would be, for example, for the level 60 mount or the now level 40 mount, they had changed it so that the mount was cheaper than riding. Riding was 900, and then the mount itself was only 100. So I don't know exactly why they did that, but just getting, yeah, like NS said there. I mean, it's just a huge difference in prices, and I think that's had a effect on like the importance of having a mount.
Yeah, I remember something that you've said to me a number of times too, is that back in the day, having your epic mount right at level 60 was a ridiculous feat. And, I mean, the one other thing that we need to keep in mind is just the fact that you get them at a lower level. Like, now you're getting your mount at level 20, whereas back in the day, that was 20 extra levels up till 40 where you didn't have a mount and you were essentially running around on foot. So there was definitely not only a price discrepancy, but also just a time investment difference in there and how much time you had to put into the game as you were running around on foot
Right.
to accomplish the same amount of questing or whatever it was you wanted to be doing.
Exactly. And I think another point that brings up is having that mount now, different racials that different, like for example, you're a shaman and you can turn into a wolf
Yes,
at
I'll
level
do that right
15.
now just for a little example.
So, for example, back in the day, I played a shaman, and this was an amazing ability, and everyone had their own different speed ability besides a couple guys that got kind of the short end of the stick. Again, like, for example, a hunt or a warrior didn't get any speed increasing thing. So what he would do is he would run through mobs, charge a mob, and then just keep running. So, I mean, it made you sort of invent different ways to get around. And I feel like getting a mount was a lot bigger back in the day. It was a bigger accomplishment, and it felt really good to get your mount.
Yeah, I think you can look at it that the one way in the sense that it was a big accomplishment, but on the other hand, would you say it was more frustrating to get them out back then?
Right.
And I think that that is an important thing to keep in mind, that this is something I always say, you shouldn't give people free stuff in games. You shouldn't just throw free epic gear at them because they ask for it. You should make them work for your gear, but you don't want that work to be boring, because the purpose of a game is to have fun. And so it's perfectly okay to have a lot of work required to get the good stuff in a game, but you want to avoid just really grindy repetition. You want to make sure that that work is actually fun and enjoyable. And I mean, obviously I never did it, but from what I've heard, getting a mount involved a lot of grindy repetition back then. Correct me if I'm wrong here. But
Oh, there was. I mean, I think to a certain degree, it really depended on what type of player you were. If you wanted to get your mount right at level 60, then yes, there was going to be some grinding involved. And again, you bring up this point that you don't want it's a game and you want to make it fun. I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, you don't want to make the game extremely easy, um,
well,
which I
yes.
find is a problem. So it's sort of finding a balance between the two.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that Blizzard has been doing more recently, is trying to make the game a little bit more accessible to casual players. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not throwing free stuff at them. I mean, if I can hijack a phrase from Total Biscuit here, he always refers to entitled casuals, meaning the casual players who don't want to put in the same amount of time as a hardcore player, but want the same rewards. And you want to avoid caving into them and giving them free stuff for no work. But it's perfectly okay, I think, to try to make the game a bit more accessible for casual players, and I do think that that's one thing that the new mount system is doing, is making players who don't want to put in the same amount of time and effort to... I mean, the way I'm phrasing this, it sounds bad, but like, there are players who don't want to be playing on a regular schedule every single day. They just want to play when they have the free time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously they're not going to be able to reap all the same rewards as a hardcore player, but mounts are one thing that I think I can really get behind giving to the more casual players. Because honestly, all it's doing is making the game a little bit more convenient. It's taking out that boring element of having to run between cities and quest givers and all of that. And it goes back to what I said earlier about you want to avoid boring, grindy repetition. Part of that boring stuff is just running around. There's absolutely no way that a game is going to make running between point A and point B fun.
To a certain degree, I agree with you there. I
Okay,
feel
I should
like
say there's no way an MMO is going to do it. There are some games that are entirely based around that, but in an MMO, running between 2 points is not the fun part of the game.
right. I feel like with the mount though at this low level, you sort of you find yourself kind of missing out on the beauty of the world. Like if you just kind of look around right now, this area just in itself is really good looking. And if you're going really slowly, you get to kind of soak in all those sights. And I feel like you kind of miss that part of that game where it's more, oh wow, this is really nice. I would have missed this if I had just taken the normal path to get to this quest. But I, being a smart person, did it like I didn't have a mount, so I charged a couple mobs on the way there, and hey, this is really cool. I didn't see this before. So
That's that's
I
actually
don't know.
an interesting point that I hadn't considered that, to be honest, and never really thought about just the appreciation of just the beauty of the game, and and that's a good thing. Like if you're sitting back and appreciating the game and really saying, "Wow, this is beautiful," that's obviously what games and companies try to do when they put graphics into their games. I mean, good graphics into their games, but unfortunately, I don't think there's nearly enough players to actually bother to just stop and look around. I think a lot more players are just focused on getting from point A to point B, finishing the quest, getting the rewards. I think the majority of players aren't really going to be focusing so much on the environments and whatnot, and I think that the percent of people that do is probably small enough that it pleasing them is not going to be Blizzard's main concern.
Right. I don't
Um,
know. I think it again. I think it's just a balance between the two. I
yeah, most
agree
certainly.
with getting mounts, but I don't agree with such an easy way to get this mount. It was 1,000 gold to get your epic back in the day. It was like, geez, you can't just like go up to the rider and say, "Oh, I got